Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today we're reviewing for you Terminator 2D No Fate on the Nintendo Switch. This review was originally written by the lovely Tom Massey and has been adapted for video by me. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. Are you old enough to remember being a child and seeing a NES, SNES, or Mega Drive game of a licensed film and having your imagination run wild as to all the playable scenarios potentially contained within? If the answer is yes, then you're equally likely to remember the actual experience typically being rushed, poorly coded junk that barely resembled the material upon which it was based. But in an alternate timeline, UK developers Mike Tucker and Matthew Cope would grow up to form a future resistance in 2016 under the moniker Bitmap Bureau. Their mission? Return to the early 90s to create the 16-bit movie licensed game kids always dreamed of, before traveling back to 2025 to correct the past and save the world. Confused? Wait until you find out who the father is. Terminator 2D No Fate is that game. Prophesies to say hasta la vista to the memory of LJN and its Skynet-like destruction of movie licenses. It recreates Cameron's action spectacular right down to the tiniest of details, forging it into the 2D gaming adventure it was destined to be. What we value about Bitmap Bureau is that it always aims squarely for the Super Nintendo and Mega Drive game that never was. Terminator 2D's entire design feels born out of an alternate timeline, like a genuine 16-bit companion to the film's 1991 release. There are two starting modes and several locked bonuses, including a boss rush and an infinite mode. Story mode is stuffed with cutscenes that you'll recognize from the original theatrical release, with text outlining the narrative instead of voice acting because it's supposed to be a 16-bit game, baby. It's also a longer game in that it's bookended with stages that occur before and after the events of the film, having Sarah Connor first retrieve a kidnapped John from a Mexican cartel before breaking into Cyberdyne research. This actually alludes to what John Connor tells his friend early in the film, that his mother was arrested for trying to recover something she believed to be hidden within Cyberdyne's lab. From there, you'll leap to the future war, playing adult John himself as he faces off against the machines, and the epilogue ensures there's a climactic finale beyond Arnie's thumbs-up farewell. As Bitmap Bureau isn't restricted to following the film's blueprint in these original stages, they're actually some of the best, freer in design, more creatively bold, and teeming with colossal machine bosses. In story mode, you have only one life and 4 continues, but can greatly increase their stock by finding special icons throughout the campaign. With a generous life bar and liberally distributed health icons, it's surprisingly easy on the default difficulty, especially so when compared to Bitmap Bureau's infamously brutal Xeno Crisis. Seasoned gamers will likely finish it in just a few attempts, but tweaking the difficulty up from no problemo to hasta la vista adds in additional enemies, rearranges some objects, and makes the time limit much more pressing. Finishing story mode opens up new paths with new stages and characters to play, triggered at choice-based junctures. Will you off Miles Dyson in front of his family, or will you install Arnie's skull chip and finally get your hands on that minigun? It's an idea that greatly improves replay value, especially since the alternate routes are altogether just fantastic, and it takes the total number of stages to at least 16 as far as we can gather. Arcade mode, while equally soft to beat, requires you do so on one life and no continues. It's also shorter, cutting out the precursor stages and cutscenes to focus only on the movie-related parts, making for a brisk, exciting experience. And if you're struggling to nail a particular stage, there's a practice mode to help out as well. The soundtrack is superb, blending those classic Terminator musical motifs into all new mixes, and graphically, it's very impressive. The capturing of the film's characteristics is absolutely applause-worthy. Fans will be grinning from ear to ear and end to end as it works through every set piece and minute detail in its grand 2D style. The recreation of even the smallest of particulars is superb, from that burning tire that rolls out of the post-aqueduct explosion to the T-1000 getting hasta la vista'd into liquid nitrogen chunks. It's all just so thoughtfully reproduced. We really wish that there was some sort of award here for movie license accuracy. The sprite work, though, is a touch stilted in places. Most enemies look fine, collapsing to the ground fluidly when shot, but the human-sized guard dogs are just strange. Sarah Connor can't bend her knees much, and her gait is overall just a little bit stiff. life. And while the giant, towering future war hunter-killer machines and gunships look fantastic, we would have liked to see the emblematic T-800 endoskeletons to have a little bit more presence and threat. It's a mixed bag that mostly ranges from sufficient to great, and it's a minor criticism in a game where tight controls gloss over any aesthetic dips. It's just surprising that with an art team capable of feats like animating the T-1000's entire lava death transformation, some of the sprites appear, well, slightly robotic. Stages are piece by piece constructed from the movie's sequences, and it's all action all the way. There's no faffing about with collecting colored keycards here, it's all gunning, lobbing grenades, barging, punching, and driving. Much of the gameplay's like Contra, with an 8-way directional fire and a useful slide attack, but different characters have different moves depending on the scenario. When Sarah is breaking out of prison, which is one of the more difficult stages in the game, she only has bare feet, a nightstick, and a lockpicking mechanic. But when she goes militaristic, planting bombs in Cyberdyne's HQ, she can wield certain enemies as human shields and slide kick falling debris into encroaching assailants. In the famous Your Clothes, Your Boots, and Your Motorcycle sequence, you play naked Arnie in a simplistic beat-em-up inspired stage, roughing up bikers to the film's actual background music. Make sure you destroy that jukebox. Elsewhere, you race down the aqueduct as John before switching to a shotgun-strapped Schwarzenegger to shoot out chain-link fences. So much of the film is present, in fact, we only lamented not getting to evade the T-1000 through a giant 90s arcade center. Well, that and the fact that Schwarzenegger's likeness couldn't be acquired for the game, but they've done some clever workarounds in order to work around that fact. In an odd way, Terminator 2 is so thorough in tracing the film's sequences that it almost doesn't feel like a game in the traditional sense. Every stage is different, piecemeal, with clever gameplay implementations that make each feel unique, but it's extraordinarily linear on the whole. Most stages take less than 3 minutes to beat and go by in a flash once you know the layout. There is the odd hidden item to find just off the beaten path, and whether taking cover behind walls to avoid a laser barrage or triggering traps to catch the T-1000 in machine assemblies, it's plenty of fun to learn. At the same time, it's more of a series of endearing movie vignettes than a full-blown game in the traditional sense. By sticking to the source material so staunchly, it limits itself in scale, more akin to a compilation of arcade-like bonus games than a series of fully articulated stages. Interestingly, half of what makes Terminator 2D fun is the painstaking reproduction of the movie it's based on. Were it to have no relationship to a beloved IP, it would likely be criticized for its brevity, linearity, and general simplicity. Once fully beaten, you won't likely return to it for anything except a nostalgia hit, but T2 fans and 16-bit diehards will feel well served by its detailed reminiscence. A great deal of the game's charm is derived from its novelty factor, and it's that novelty, in conjunction with some clever ideas and impressive authenticity, that should inform your purchasing decision. Terminator 2D No Fate, you're getting a 7 out of 10 from us. Now that the review's done, it's time for Alex's personal thoughts, and this, yeah, I mean, if you're of a certain age, you know, sort of you were born in maybe sort of the mid to late 80s or even the early 90s, there's gonna be a hell of a lot for you here. Like, there's so much here that feels so almost brutally classic in so many ways, particularly if you choose a harder difficulty, which is what I started with, and then I needed more footage and I kept dying and I was like, oh, I've got other stuff to do, I better play on the easier difficulty. And that does raise one of my criticisms of the game, and that's that the jump from No Problemo to Hasta La Vista is just a little bit too much in some ways. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the extra stuff that they throw in the harder difficulty. That's the stuff I really like, the sort of moment to moment, oh, there's more enemies, oh, you've dropped down here and now there are turrets here and there aren't in the easier difficulties. That stuff I absolutely love, but it is really, really mean in regards to its like life system and the continues, because you do only get one life and you get a handful of continues, and as a result I just could not get that far, and I know that's the point. I know that's the point. It's meant to be difficult, but I do think that there's maybe an argument to be made for starting with maybe slightly more continues, because you've only got that one life. Like, it's just, you just don't end up being able to practice things as much, which admittedly is very accurate to those bloody games we grew up with, but it's 2025 and I don't have the time and patience to sort of beat my head against a brick wall in order to get through the harder difficulty. Having said that, I am pleased it is at least as difficult as it is on the harder difficulty. I haven't unlocked the hardest difficulty yet, which I'm sure is a delight, but it's a really fun game. It's quite simple in many regards, but I like the variety that you get from the different characters and the different sections. Again, very reminiscent of those old like film tie-in games where you'd play the first level and it would be like, oh, it's a shooter, and then it's a top-down racer, and then it's something else, and I mean, it was mad, you know, it was absolutely mad, but, you know, I suppose maybe it distracted from the fact that no one game mode was very good back then. I like it a lot. It's really good fun, it's targeting a very specific audience, and I think it's absolutely achieved what it's set out to. It's not going to appeal to everyone, but by golly does it appeal to me.
Terminator.